Also at the White House today, several religious leaders from around the nation met with President Bush to discuss his faith-based initiatives program as well as other issues. Following the meeting, they stopped outside the White House to speak with reporters.
How are you, sir? How you doing? Fine, man. All right. Good to see you. Hey, how you doing? Okay. Come over here. All right. All right, good. Can you? There are a few others that are. Well, we just started, yeah. Mr. Patterson, can you just tell us about the meeting with the president today and how it went?
Well, the president basically wanted. My name is Gilbert Patterson. I'm the presiding bishop of the Church of God in Christ. The president met with a group of religious leaders in order that he might share his heart with us concerning the faith-based initiative. And we felt that it was quite an interesting meeting. And I'm thoroughly convinced that the president is sincere in his desire to reach into the communities, especially African American communities, to help those who are less fortunate and disenfranchised.
What was the desire that he expressed, though? I mean, what in particular for you to do?
Well, as you know, basically social programs have been the property of various governmental agencies and non-religious organizations, and the faith-based initiative is designed to actually empower those of us who are really working with the disenfranchised, because nobody is closer to people who are in need of help than the churches, especially black churches.
Do you get the sense, though, that there is a good level of enthusiasm among churches in general and African American churches in particular to participate in this faith-based initiative? There doesn't seem to be a great call out there among the churches.
Well, that is basically because of the fact that many of the leaders have not had the opportunity to really sit down with the president. They have only heard what various critics have said. The only way to really get the straight of the program is to hear the person who has designed it and hear his heartbeat.
Bishop Patterson, your denomination was particularly somewhat identified with very historic moments of your predecessor. Your convention is considered where Bill Clinton gave perhaps his greatest speech when he was president. Do you think this president can establish the same kind of relationship with your denomination and others in the African American community?
I believe that once our church and all of the other traditionally African American churches get the opportunity to hear his heartbeat and hear from their leaders as to how we have been impressed by him, I think that we will see something different in America. We may see the African American community for the first time since Abraham Lincoln supporting a Republican president.
Wait a minute. Let me ask you this. You say that, but recent polls just show, especially for some of the ministers that haven't spoken, Reverend Reid particularly, how can you say that when recent polls just show 75% of African Americans don't favor this president?
I didn't vote for him myself, and most of us did not vote for him, but he is in office. And the one thing we must learn, the African American community cannot afford to sit still for 4 years or 8 years with our fingers crossed waiting for a Democrat.
Come on, Bishop.
Life goes on.
Why did the African American clergy need a separate meeting and not a general meeting with the clergy at large?
Bishop Ring.
If I could, I'm Bishop Harold Calvin Ray, the chairman and founder of the National Center for Faith-Based Initiative, which is a collaboration of thousands of churches across this country, predominantly African American in nature. The recent study by the Joint Center for Political and Economic Affairs makes clear that African Americans, in a survey taken at the end of 1999, or end of 2000, rank very high on their list of most concerning them. The same issues that are out there for every other person in America, that is crime, health care, the economy. we are talking not so much about partisanship as we are about policy that makes a difference. And these policies that are being invoked through the faith-based initiative clearly leverage the ability of the churches that are out there that for years have been making bricks without straw, that have been providing services without regard to faith, which have been delivering non-sectarian social delivery services on a around-the-clock basis with great impact. And so we're here today, and the president was very open to hear what we had to say, to hear from leaders such as Bishop Patterson, other denominational leaders, and other independent leaders that are here, to make clear that we are understanding what the initiative is, and that we also understand what the administration's commitment is, that there not be this violation of separation of church and state, and at the same time, that the voice of the church not be snuffed out in the process of leveraging their services.
You say you're not talking about partisanship or policy, but what about the situation with conservatives like Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, who obviously have the ear of people inside the White House that kind of basically held back on unveiling the total faith-based policy until they could clear out some serious issues? Do you see the African-American ministers reaching out to Jerry Falwell and those conservatives to have some type of consensus among the faith community?
That's already begun. That dialogue, on that issue. Okay, Reverend Eugene Rivers, National 10-Point Leadership Foundation in Boston. The dialogue with the conservatives has already begun. Another reason that we're here is to support the singular work of John J. DiIulio Jr., the leader of this office, who has for the last half dozen years been working to provide bridges of communication between religious conservatives and the black churches. And so this is an opportunity for a dialogue and a discussion that has been long overdue as we discuss the particulars of this program. And so we're here to support the program, and the emphasis, as has been said, is on policies and programs and not partisanship. Part of the problem has been that people have got caught up in party labels. As black preachers, we can't feed our constituents rhetoric or party labels. What they need are programs, policies, and measurable outcomes. And so the basis of this conversation was pragmatic, not ideological. It was about programs and policies and not personalities.
Talk about the legislation.
Though you were concerned that maybe the conservatives were changing the president's mind on moving ahead on this thing. Is there any concern?
There's no concern. After this conversation with President Bush, it is clear that he is going to move forward. There are details that need to be worked upon, but he is going to move forward, and we support that, and John J. DiIulio.
Details that need to be worked on is part of it the criticism about proselytizing and organizations that receive federal funding. Was that discussed in the meeting?
There are presumptive arguments regarding the legalities of this on both sides, on the left and the right. All of these are presumptive because clearly the legislation that is even still pending, the charitable choice legislation, is still pending. There may be further amendment to that. That is simply, even in the press conference coming up Wednesday, going to be announced. And I might take this opportunity to share as well, coming up in April, we've worked for some 40, 50 days here now with the leaders of the Congress. There's going to be a Clergy Congressional Leadership Summit, April 24th and 25th, at which the president will also be keynoting, specifically designed to bring greater understanding to the charitable choice legislation, as well as the policy invectives that will go into the communities through the faith-based initiative.
Why did you need an all-black clergy meeting? I still didn't get an understanding. Why did black clergy need a separate meeting?
Well, it's very important. My name is Reverend Herb Lusk. I am the chairman of faith-based initiatives for the National Baptist Convention, which is one of the largest African-American bodies in the world. And it's very clear, based upon what was said earlier, one of the questions that was asked is that there are more African-Americans against than for. And for that reason, if no other reason, that's a good reason for us to be here. The fact that many of our people are looking for answers, and we can't give them answers until we meet the man. We have not only met the man, but we have also come to the conclusion that he is not simply a man, but also a man of faith. And right now what's happening is our faith is connecting with his faith. Our trust is beginning to grow. We can't make any serious commitments about what's going to happen after this meeting, but we can tell you this, that the president has hit a home run here today with all of our leaders. And we're very, very excited about the possibilities.
Does your trust extend to this, not being concerned that this might be a Trojan horse being sent in to dismantle your faith-based organizations with government red tape?
We have no real concerns about that at all. The reason why there's no concern is because these are going to be separate 501c3s. I mean, they won't necessarily be money going directly into churches necessarily. For the most part, we'll be using our social arms in order to take advantage of these opportunities.
Well, some of you, including Reverend Reid, are political in your communities. You're not only spiritual, if you can get him back over, you're not only spiritual, but you're political in nature in a lot of your communities. And part of the problem in the last administration, African Americans supported a Democratic president, but they felt that they didn't come back and do anything in the community. If you're supporting this Republican president who's not known to be really big in the African American community, will you hold him accountable? Because that seems to be the problem in the past, that you give these votes, give this support, and you don't hold a president accountable. What about this Republican president who you don't have a great relationship with, the African American Republican relationship with?
I've got to tell you that I have a good relationship with him. And if you had seen the National Baptist Convention, I opened it up and spoke from my pulpit to the nation in my support of his faith-based initiative. So I do have a relationship with him, and I'm finding out that my people are beginning to understand and begin to make contact with his spirit. So it's not clear to me that African Americans have to be simply Democrats. It's not clear to me that African Americans have to be simply independents. Right now, I think there's a movement. We're beginning to rethink things. We're beginning to rethink how we vote. We're beginning to rethink, how we look at certain presidents. And this president has our attention.
Can I just say, Robert Franklin, president of the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, the nation's largest predominantly African-American seminary. It seems to me one of the things that President Bush said to us, there were two themes that resounded. One, this is not about politics. And second, my life has been changed through faith. It was very testimonial in that respect. I felt resembled President Clinton's claims to personal authority and experience of faith as an important catalyst. One of the things that struck me about President Bush's comments was his observation that if this initiative silences the prophetic voice of the faith community, it is a failed program. And it is precisely because so few African Americans supported him during the election, back to the gentleman's question. I think it was a good faith gesture to open the door, although he realized there are many of us who are skeptical, many who did not support him. And consequently, I think the good news is that this administration expects the black church to be prophetic, to hold them accountable, and to be profoundly concerned with the impact of this program on the least advantaged members of the community. I would just say that according to the independent sector, there are over 400,000 houses of worship in the United States. And for me, that means 400,000 stations of hope and service delivery. We make good on this. There are a lot of children today who suffer and who live in misery, whose lives can be changed. And ultimately, it's that pragmatic test, I think, that should measure the effectiveness of the program.
Frank Reid, pastor of Bethel AME Church in Baltimore, Maryland. I think the key thing about this meeting today is that the prophetic black church cannot be on the Democratic plantation or the Republican plantation. And the president, by reaching out today, is saying, I know that the majority of your community and the majority of your churches did not support me last time, but this is not about politics. This is about providing services to the people that need them. And so while we are concerned about the shadow of the religious right, we should also be concerned about the shadow of the political and religious left.
Was there any discussion in the meeting of non-Christian religious groups like the Nation of Islam?
Not in this meeting, no, there wasn't.
Did you pray with them at all? Or?
Yes, there was a prayer at the end, led by Bishop Harold Ray.
Wait, so there was, I'm sorry. There was,
that prayer clear?
The prayer was a call to unity in the faith community, a recognition of the diversity of faith traditions, and appreciation for this president's willingness to have a reconciling spirit, and hoping that a kind of spiritual, moral renewal can break out in the nation. I would just observe one of the interesting points of discussion was whether or not this faith-based initiative, which is primarily designed to engage in service delivery, poverty alleviation, assist with welfare to work efforts, whether or not this initiative can also take on the burden of racial reconciliation in America, the most haunting question of our nation's history. And the president paused and indicated, I would like to see that happen because religion changes hearts, and this initiative may have the effect of urging the best in the American spirit among Hindus and Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, Jews, and others to step forward and say, let's lower the walls and the boundaries and the hate, and let's connect as citizens of care and compassion. Thank you.